Well, and I think what you've done, Robert, is, and I think very effectively well, is you've communicated that, look, here's how we solve this, but since it's not going to be solved anytime soon, you might as well learn the rules of the rich, which you talk about in your book, The Conspiracy of the Rich. So kind of the new rules of money that go against the old, orthodox teachings of, save money, work hard, get a job, go to school, all this kind of stuff. That doesn't work for most people because they end up dead or dead broke when they reach retirement. So you begin, right. You kind of say, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And then so what you do is you actually begin to learn the rules of the game, which we call here at our organization the rules of the game. You have to understand where things are going. And one of the things that's very controversial that you talk about is debt, because many people, again, say pay off your debt, get out of debt. But you actually teach that it's very difficult to become extremely wealthy without understanding leverage. You talk about how debt and taxes work for those who have a financial education. In fact, on page 59 of your book, Conspiracy of the Rich, you state that one of the new rules of money is to learn how to use debt. Talk about that.
Well, you have to go back in history, or economic history, right? We have the Federal Reserve, which was 1913. And in 1913, the Fed was created, but so was the IRS. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, the same year. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, then 1944, we went on to Bretton Woods. We went back on a quasi-gold standard. FDR took us off in 33. Then we went on it in 1944 with the Bretton Woods. And then 71, Nixon took us off the gold standard. So the dollar became, after 1971, pure debt. And by the way, as you know, no fiat currency ever survives more than 40 years. So we're at 40 years right now. Next year is 40 years.
Right.
We're gone. So the dollar is going to go down. So the only salvation, since the dollar was debt, use debt. Use fire to fight fire. So today I'm a rich man because I use debt, which is tax-free money. So I use debt and the tax laws to make me richer, whereas if you're a college graduate, debt and taxes make you poorer. So I just think that's kind of interesting. All I'm saying with education, you should give a kid a choice. Do you want to have debt and taxes make you rich, or you want debt and taxes make you poor? Which one? Which one do you want? And because you have a choice. It's a free country. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm not saying being a communist is right or wrong, because there's a lot of poor people who are exploited by the rich. That's granted. But by not being educated financially, they're going to get more exploited.
Robert, how specifically do you use debt to grow wealth?
Well, you look at it right now. Well, the effective interest rates are at 0. Okay, so I just bought, let's use a round number, an apartment house, $10 million. That's tax-free money. On top of that, all that money that comes to me is my money, plus I get depreciation, I get appreciation, I get amortization. It's all tax-free money. It's all tax-free money. And I pay it back, not with my money, but my tenants' money. My tenants pay for my debt for me. So I want as much debt as possible. So good debt is debt that somebody else pays for me. Bad debt is debt on my house, because I got to pay for the debt on my house. I have 2 houses, 2 personal residences, one in Arizona and one in Waikiki. But those are bad debt. I have lots of good debt. So just now, interest rates going down so low, in an hour, I have a meeting with another broker. I'm going after another piece of real estate, 100% debt financed. The problem is, if you have no financial education, you should not do what I do. That's all I'm saying. You shouldn't attempt brain surgery at home if you haven't been trained to be a brain surgeon. So I use debt to get rich because it's all tax-free money. Plus, on top of that, the government incentivizes me to get in debt. So I pay 0 tax and make millions of dollars every year. Whereas if I'm a doctor, I'll pay 60% of my money in tax. That's not intelligent.
So at the end of the year, Robert Kiyosaki, Inc. is not paying any kind of taxes?
No. Legally, because I use debt and I invest in real estate. And you see, taxes are a government incentive program. So if you're an idiot, they're going to tax you. If you're a capitalist, they're going to give you tax incentives. I just bought a sailboat, 60-footer. I just got back last night from Hawaii. We sailed from California to Hawaii. I got an 80% write-off on it.
Wow.
The government's buying me my boat. The reason for that is I own a boat charter company. So the boat goes into the charter business. It's an asset because it makes me money. If it was my personal boat, I get no tax deduction for it.
So the IRS tax code, whenever you look at the IRS code, it actually contains within it all of the things. It basically teaches you how to not pay taxes, doesn't it?
Yes, that's exactly it. It taxes people who are employees. You know, people go to school or go to a job, and it taxes people who become professionals like doctors and lawyers. Doctors and lawyers, after the 86 Tax Reform Act, pay the highest taxes possible. And guys like me who are the dummies in school, as a C student, but because I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have a job and I'm not a professional, I get the tax incentives because I buy real estate because the government needs me to provide housing, and as an entrepreneur I create jobs. So the tax code is actually a stimulus plan. It always has been and always will be, but our schools don't teach you that. They told you to go to school, get a job, get a house, stay out of debt, pay off your credit cards. That is really bad advice.
Mm-hmm.
But America is a fabulous place for the financially educated. It's a horrible place if you went to school. Hence the title of my first book. I'm rich and happy. Don't go to school. Because you're taught to go out and get a job and work for the man, and I'm the man.
You are hitting on some topics right now that many people know exist. You know, this book, Rich Dad's Conspiracy of the Rich, there really is a conspiracy going. It's one of the things we talk about. That's why our show is called Follow the Money, because we know that if you want to get to the truth, you have to follow the money. And, you know, what we see going on right now, this whole financial crisis has at its very root all kinds of issues that are conspiratorial. And one of the things that I think that, you know, you bring out in your book is the fact that for the average person out there who is working, you're bringing it up, you're saying it over and over right now, that they're basically getting hosed. When they put money into a mutual fund or they put money into their 401k, where's that money going?
To me. Where do you think the mutual fund companies, you know, where do you think I get my money from? I get it from pension plans. Where do you think the capitalists get their money from? They get it from the working class people. So all I'm saying is, you know, in conspiracy, is you've got to make a decision. You want to be on the poor side, the proletariat, with nothing, or you want to be on the side of the rich. If you want to be on the poor side, then just go to school, become a doctor, become a lawyer, and you won't learn anything about what I know. That's my rich dad. My poor dad was a guy who said I came back from Vietnam after my second tour. I was a pilot out there, and I got knocked down a number of times. My dad says, go back to school, get your job, and become a PhD and work for the government. I said, so I got a good pension. And what's killing this country are those sick and stupid pensions that Congress votes themselves in. So I'm a hardcore capitalist. I make no apologies for that. That's why I love Steve Forbes and G. Edwards Griffin. I mean, that book, Creature from Jekyll Island, that is a must-read. That is a primer to understand why we're in this mess financially. And then you can sit there and go, well, whose side am I on? I want to be the victim or I want to be on the rich side. I made my decision years ago. I'd rather be rich. I don't want to be a proletariat. You know, I don't want to be working class. If you do, go to school and get a job.
On page 147 of your book, Conspiracy of the Rich, you list the four basic investment categories. You say, number one, there's businesses. Number two, there's income-producing investment real estate, which you've brought up. Number three, there's paper assets like stock, bonds, annuities, insurance. And then four, there's commodities like gold, silver, which have been all the rage lately. Why don't we talk about these just real briefly, each of these basic four investment categories. You know, when people talk about diversifying, you know, the old concept of, you know, diversify, put a little money in Microsoft, put a little money in IBM, and there you go. Well, I mean, you're talking about investing across multiple asset platforms. So having some money in commodities, some in paper, some in real estate, some in business. I mean, you're talking about spreading the wealth, so to speak. And I've always found that that is really the most important and probably the easiest way to protect your money from Uncle Sam, because if you're diversified that way, you can handle if they change the rules. If they change the rules and confiscate gold, if they change the rules and confiscate retirement funds. Well, if you have all your money in a house and a 401k, you're a sitting duck.
Right.
But if you have them spread out across various asset classes, than you can handle when the rules of the game change.
Well, you don't even have to do that. You just look at the rules right now. The worst asset class possible are paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and savings. They're the worst. That's why the person with no financial education is already in the worst asset class possible. And then what happens is financial planners will tell you to diversify. What they're really saying is diversify. You're not diversified. Like you could be buying, let's say, well, invest in real estate through a REIT, R-E-I-T. That's still a paper asset. You could buy Exxon, but you're still in paper assets. I buy the hardcore oil. I own the oil well. I want the production. I don't want the paper asset. So the most people who are diversified are actually diversified. They're not diversified at all, and it's really a scam. It's a sleight of hand. It's fraud.
What are your thoughts now, saying all that, what are your thoughts and view on the outlook on the U.S. stock market in general? You mentioned something about 2015, 2016 seeing a major collapse. What about until then? Do you think we go higher from here? What are your thoughts on investing in the stock market?
I think what happened was Bernanke and Obama finally got the message, and Bernanke is now pumping more money in to keep his $600 billion quantitative easing. He calls it QE2, quantitative easing 2. It's actually quantitative easing 3. It's the third one he's done. And they're just doing it to prop up the stock market. So it's like, giving a drunk a drink in the morning to cure the hangover. It's not going to help. Mm-hmm. So when this market comes down, it's going to come down 10 times harder. It's, like I said, it's like giving a drunken sailor a Bloody Mary in the morning. It's all we're doing right now. And the reason I say 2015 to 2016 in that era is that's when the baby boomers, when the actual people start pulling out more money that goes in. And so on top of that, what Bernanke just did was he said, okay, we're going to pump $600 billion in quantitative easing too, but all of that money goes to China. It doesn't go to us. It's just really the biggest ripoff of the American people I've ever seen. And it starts with the school system not teaching us financial education and the labor unions. Again, I'm not against them. I'm just against ignorance. If people know, they can make an educated decision. But if you don't know, then you have to listen to these financial planners and these politicians and these bankers who are ripping you off. I love pension plans. That's where I get my money from. I just bought a $46 million 5-golf course and major resort in Phoenix, Arizona, and the money came from a pension plan. I love those guys. But I have a choice. You know what I mean?
It is shocking when you see so many Americans who know their favorite sport teams' statistics, the latest news about some Hollywood starlet, or whatever else the mindless media is pouring down their throats. But at the same time, these Americans don't understand the most basic financial ideas. They are totally clueless. There's been poll after poll after poll that have shown that Americans have no clue what a subprime mortgage is or what the economic crisis, what it's really about. What about the guy who is out there? He's working a job. He's making $50,000, $60,000 a year. His wife stays home. He's doing his best to get ahead. He hears guys like you on the radio. He reads your books, and he's going, gosh, how do I make my way to that quadrant? You mentioned the different employees, self-employed. How do these people, what do they need to do? I mean, how do they begin to get financially literate enough to begin doing the right thing?
Well, that's why I said don't go to school. I didn't say education was bad. But as an adult, if you're over 18, you should be able to choose your education. But every time I went to school, they kept saying, so you can go to, my dad would say, go to PhDs and get a job with the government. I thought, you're programming me, you're brainwashing me, a Pavlov dog to look for a job. So what I've always said, in 1973 when I came back from Vietnam, my rich dad said there's two things you must do before, I get any older. One was take real estate investment courses, and not because of real estate. I had to learn real estate is about how do you turn debt into money.